Welcome everyone to the Learning Curve podcast. I don't know what episode this is. You'll see it underneath on YouTube. You'll see it in the Spotify as well. But this is a very special episode. We do have some guests that are traveling, I think 7,000 miles away. Near and dear to my heart. When they come here, they represent where I'm from as well. So we do have Mr. Raphael Peacock, and we also have Mr. Brian Drye, coming from New York City.
New York City.
The city that never sleeps.
New York City.
Right?
Neither do we.
We haven't slept either. So.
I feel like I haven't either, and I do a different job than you both.
Sure. I am sure.
Welcome. How you doing?
Good, my brother. How you
Good.
feeling?
Welcome, Brian. How you doing?
Thank you.
Love to see y'all because you come from where I'm from, and so that just brings a familiarity of home. So really welcome you here. I have some questions. I think the people need to get to know who you are,
Okay.
right? You're celebrities in our area, all right? For sure. That's why we have you on these seats right here. Okay?
Thank you
Cool.
for welcoming us.
Before we get into it, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling energized. We just had a lovely masterclass session with some of your students who played piano, who sang and did some acting. We met some of the parents. So it was a lovely moment in time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thinking about the growth in the community. This when we first began here 4 years ago, something like this was not a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, I began 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Brian's been here actually longer than I have.
This is my 5th time coming to the school. So I've been here, I better check the map.
Wow.
But I'm pretty sure it's my 5th time. And also, the growth here is just fantastic. And the students are amazing here. So it's really a special treat to come and see the growth of where they are now, compared to where we started from. So
Since you've been here for 5 times now,
yeah.
what's a little bit different this time around than maybe the previous times at school?
There's visibly, and you can see the performing arts. It's happening, right?
Right.
It's the performing arts faculty is bigger.
Yes.
There's more rooms being used for performing arts. There's more performing going on.
Right.
So yeah, it just feels even more vibrant. And it's not that there wasn't great stuff happening before. It's just more of it. So when you have more, the quality is going to go up. So yeah,
Growth is important. If you have a number of years under your belt, you should be growing.
yeah,
Right?
yes, yeah.
I've been growing a little bit this way.
Speaking of under the belt,
Under the belt, right?
of good
Yes.
food here in Qatar.
But I'll echo Raphael to say that we are, although maybe a little bit jet lagged, because it is a long travel, but also energized. As soon as we're with the students, with the teachers, the faculty here, the administration, we're just excited because they're excited and we're getting feedback and energy from them. So that keeps us awake.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Really nice words. By the way, if you're looking and listening, you might hear some sounds outside. We are preparing for our International Family Fun Day tomorrow. So a lot of the work is being done after school. We're here after school doing the pod as well. So a school is, I guess, a conclave of noise, right? So you're going to hear a lot of noise. But we're going to work through it the best as we can, all right? So let's get into some questions. Get to know who you are. Can you each tell, your earliest memory? When you're talking about falling in love with performing arts, what was the earliest memory you're like, this is what I'm going to do for life?
Me first?
I think so.
Well, I just have to say that my dad was a musician. And so I grew up in a house where music was, my dad was always playing the piano, always writing music, rehearsing music. Music was on in the house, and it was just part of my life at such an early age. I never really thought about it as, I guess the love was already there, right? It always kind of born into it. But when I first, started taking my first lesson, and that moment where you're like, oh, there's a code and there's a form and a thing I can learn here about music. I got instantly excited. And that continued at every step as I got to, introduced to the trombone. And then at first it was interesting. And then I was in band and that was interesting. And then meeting other more advanced players. And, as I just kept, moving on, being like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And realizing that is what I want to do. So I guess the love, grows, just like you're talking about growth.
Yes.
And so it's not just like one moment. I think it's many, many, many moments put together and stacked on top of each other. And then you're like, and then it's not a question like, do I like this or do I love this? I love this so much, it's all I can think about. So, yeah.
It was almost as if it was groomed on you, in the sense you saw it every single day, you heard it every single day.
And some folks get into music or get into the performing arts because they're kind of, let's just say, I don't know, say pushed into it, but they're like, you're going to go to piano lessons, you're going to do this. That wasn't the case for me. My parents didn't pressure me into it. It was definitely a choice that I made.
Nice.
And they didn't give me a lot of, they let it be in my hands. But I think that's what helped me want to do it more. And that just worked for me.
Yes.
I know other people that they needed to be pushed and I still needed to be pushed, but a lot of it was self-driven, so it's interesting. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a similar tract in that music. My mom would dance around the living room, and there'd be Caribbean music playing, and there'd be salsa music playing, and there'd be gospel music playing, and rhythm and blues, and I had early exposure to Quincy Jones, and it was just in my house. We went to church, black church.
Absolutely.
Everybody sang.
Long time in there.
God didn't make bad notes. Right?
I was going to say my dad was in church too, so I grew up in that as well.
So that's part of it. Was just part of life, as it were. And then it's access. Access. We had music in our school's program. I went to school on Long Island, and music was just there. So I selected to play the glockenspiel when I was in second grade. Then I played the violin. Then I played the alto sax, and I sang in the choir. And these were things that I just chose to do because I liked doing them, and it was just fun. My first part was the mayor of Munchkinland in The Wizard of Oz. I was tiny. I think that may have been sixth grade or some sixth or seventh grade, somewhere thereabouts. But I also played a lot of sports, and so part of access eventually led me to it, but much later on, much later on in life. I remember seeing Your Arms Too Short to Box with God, and my grandmother took me to see that show as a part of a church trip, and it was Al Green and Patti LaBelle, and it was incredible. It was just incredible. So if I think back to a moment where I realized what I was watching was incredible, and that if someone had to say what's the show, that was probably the show. But even then, it wasn't what I did. So I went on and did other things and studied other things. And I didn't go to drama school until I was much older. And I told the students, when I finally went to my mom and said, I'm going to go to drama school, she said, well, it's about time. What have you been waiting for? And at that point, I was working for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, working in capital planning and operations. I wanted to go into housing and urban development, and a lot of things were happening in the world at that time. That's a conversation for another time. But what was happening in the world really made me step back and think, how can I have the impact that I want to have? And I didn't feel that working in state and local politics was the way that I could. But artistically, would be the way that I could engage with people that I wanted to engage with and be a part of telling stories that I wanted to tell, and that led me to becoming an actor.
See, that prompts another question in my mind. A lot of times what I see, some people have a lot of talent, sometimes natural, sometimes cultivated, but they want to stay in safe jobs, safe money, safe career, and it's something that they can look up and say, in 15 years, I'll be done.
Yeah.
But it takes a special soul who says, you know what, I don't really know what's happening tomorrow, but I want to play, I want to act, I want to be in performing arts. What made both, well, you made the shift, it seems like, from a regular employee. Brian, I don't know if that was the same for you, but what made you kind of activate that and say, you know what, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go this route no matter what?
I think, for me, getting, coming out of high school and going into college for music, I didn't see any other option. Not because I wasn't interested in other options. I loved science. I loved literature. There was a lot of other likes I had. I was not great at sports, but I enjoyed them. So I'll just say, it didn't come natural to me. Did a little track and field. That's about it. Okay. But just that I was so driven at that age. So I was excited to put in 8-10 hours a day playing music, practicing music, just living music all the time. I didn't think ahead too much at that time. And when I got to when I was graduating college, of course I had the opportunity to stay and do a master's degree, but when I talked to my advisors and my mentors at college, they were like, I think you might just want to go to New York. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't even, because they're like, what kind of music do you want to do? And I told them I want to play creative music, creative jazz. Like, you might want to just check out New York. And I landed in New York and I just didn't leave because I found that there was just so much to learn. I had so much to learn and grow into. So, for me, it was a question of just like, I really wasn't thinking too hard. In fact, I really did. It took me I ran out of money in the first 3 months of living in New York. And then had to go on a cruise ship and make more money and then come back. I really didn't have a plan at all. My only plan was to play. And so it took a while to figure out how I was going to make money as an artist in the performing arts. That was a journey that I had to take. But, I moved to New York at a time where you could do that as an artist. It was affordable in some respects. And
it's affordable?
I'm talking about in 1996.
Okay.
Yeah, in the 90s.
In some aspects.
Different. I mean, I lived in Washington Heights, so, but there was, there wasn't a lot of thought that went into it. However, once I started working, I realized, okay, well, I like doing this, love playing this gig, but I really like this gig. So then I started to figure out ways to, how I was going to make a living. But teaching actually became part of that equation. And so that's how I actually got into education to begin with. And I found that this is also fulfilling. I really enjoy this work that I'm doing with some students right now.
Right.
So that was a clue for me that, okay, there may be other ways to go about this career than just playing my instrument.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyways, that was early on, as a first step, kind of thing. So that's how it was for me. I don't know for you.
That's amazing that I felt like you just jumped right into what you wanted to do. Yeah. And that you had people who cared about you and gave you the real advice. Yeah. Because sometimes when someone's so confident about something, you're like, yeah, okay.
I wasn't confident.
Oh,
Oh no,
but
no.
they were.
They.
But that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
Yeah, they
yeah.
wouldn't
made you confident.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
yes,
wouldn't have
yes.
said go to New York unless they
That's
knew they were
right.
going to
Yeah.
play.
No, I was
They would've
scared.
said, "Stay
scared out of
here
my
and-
mind.
Get another degree.
Right.
And I moved to New York, and I started playing in band. I played salsa.
Wow.
Salsa was my bread and butter for 5 years. And I mean, that talk about being green and not knowing anything. And I didn't know the culture, the music. I mean, I was just like, but that I got into it, and I was pretty, I got better quickly and started working. And so that's how I started my life as a trombone player in New York, was playing those gigs. I mean, I was in the Bronx at 1 a.m, but that paid my rent.
That's
for a while,
indoctrination.
yeah.
Welcome to the culture.
Yeah. Yes.
Gotta do what you gotta do. Right?
That was great. I
Yeah.
loved it. I miss those days. Yeah.
Raphael, what about you? Like, because I've heard that you were working, and then it seemed like you just shifted.
I did, and I still keep rolling over my 401 from back in the day. Can't contribute to it because I don't have a government job anymore, so I just keep rolling it over.
Yes.
And it's just a reminder for me of what was and what I left behind and why. But I think it was a confluence of multiple events, one of which the Million Man March happened while I was working.
Yeah.
And it was a real moment to really step back and think about being inside of, state and local politics, inside of a government, inside of an administration that was building more prisons than investing money in education, that was taking money and paying people 4 and 5 times the amount of money for their homes so that they could expand the prison industrial complex to lock up people that look like me. So am I going to stay in this lane, or am I going to go ahead and speak truth about what's actually happening and why we have textbooks in this community but not in this community, and who's being served and who's not being served. So I stepped back from that moment, and I was working, doing acting things on the side, working from time to time with Roxbury Outreach Shakespeare Experience, based in Boston, and I had been working in schools and going to teach Shakespeare and doing shows, at night, kind of thing, as a way of expressing myself. And I thought, well, I can go do that. Let me see if I can go do that. So I started auditioning. I auditioned for drama programs, and literally the next year, when you were moving to New York, I was on my way to ACT to work on a Master's of Fine Arts. So I moved to New York after 2 years in '98.
Okay.
So we were right around the same time.
age. Yeah. Same time.
And that's how it happened for me. Like, I thought, I can go do that. And when I finished school, my teacher said to me, "Your work," and I said, "Okay." And that was my permission to move to New York. So I spent a summer working in the summer conservatory for American Conservatory Theater. I worked down in the Mission and worked on story theater. We took headlines from the local newspapers and turned them into stories and turned them into what was happening in the Mission. This was, a tumultuous time in that area. The Mission and the Castro were undergoing drastic shifts, and a lot of things that were happening. A lot of people were homeless and houseless and dealing with issues of domestic violence. And so it was all, the kind of stories that I thought needed to be pushed forward, and that the conservatory was behind me supporting. And so I directed those shows and made some money, and made enough money to leave San Francisco, and came back to New York, and I've been there ever since.
And rode off into the sunset. Right?
I did. I did.
I love it. Both of you had big whys. That's what it seems like. And those whys propel us And, you know, sometimes it doesn't make sense to other people, but as long as it makes sense to you, I think that's what matters the most, you know? So, okay. There's so many questions I have here. I feel like I'm deviating in my mind from those questions, but I'm going to try to ask one question from here as well. So much to go and talk about. We all have, I guess, pivotal moments, whether you're playing music, you're on the stage, and you know that, okay, that's a breakthrough. Like, I just really broke through. I think this is going to be it for me. Or someone told you that. Maybe they wrote about you or gave you that recognition. Can you ever recall a time where you felt like this is my breakthrough? Like, you made the choice, I'm doing this for life, but what was the breakthrough moment? What either someone told you or you felt it when you were performing?
You sound like you're.
I have like I've been asked this question before. And I have a.
It's a great interviewer. They ask you that question.
Yeah.
Bro.
Only the best. No, I mean, it isn't one breakthrough. It's many, many little breakthroughs. Because every day, and I learned this from one of my mentors, Hal Crook, a guy that I started studying with when I was younger, 7th grade. He's a renowned educator of jazz and trombone, and I remember him saying, "You get this much better every day. Just that you can't see it. You won't be able to see the growth, but you'll see it because it all comes back." And I feel like I never forget him saying that, because every other day I have a breakthrough, but no one else may know about that, right? Because I'm working on something and also, I could do that now,
right?
And that for me. That's I'm like, that could take me for three more years, like that one little thing. So you never know where the breakthroughs come in your art form. Career-wise, I've had some breakthroughs in my career of like being recognized or being, but those always feel like it feels nice to have that recognition, right? But that's not as interesting to me as like when, say, I performed with Raphael and had a breakthrough on some artistic moment, right? And thinking, oh my God, this is really special moment, right? So you just never know where it's going to come. So I think it's about being open to like we were talking about what was the moment you fell in love with your art form? Yes. It was many, many loves that like come together and like build up. Yes. And the same thing with the breakthrough. So I will say that I look at it more as like periods of time. And so like, for example, when my daughter was born, I was like, I had a certain schedule that allowed me to practice for 2 hours a day at the certain time because of her age, where she was. And I didn't really want to practice at that time. I was tired, but somehow like getting through those couple years, I felt a breakthrough, but it took a long time. So I think it's just being open to that and recognizing, I think something happened here. Sometimes I don't always know. But does that answer? It does answer. I know it's not the one. There's not one moment. Some people may have that. I would almost be jealous of that.
It's good to hear that as well, because I agree with you. Yeah, and it's a lifelong learning type of approach to things. So
I would hate to know that if it was like, I had a breakthrough 10 years ago and I haven't done anything since. Right? We always want to keep going. So that's my immediate reaction to that kind of idea. But
Brian speaks my mind, and in that, there are these moments, and sometimes it's connected directly to the craft of being an actor, and sometimes it's because I sat down and I wrote something.
Yes.
Right. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is connected to something that I've been wrestling with for the past 10 years and I finally understand it. Or it's that moment when I realize, this is what he meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It comes to like,
Oh, well, it's 15 years ago, but I get it now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Not to bring it back. We are as talking about Juilliard,
Yes.
right? For example, that's what the curriculum is all about, right? The curriculum is all about circling back and allowing space for breakthroughs to happen, right? Because, but the students and the teachers bring having an authentic breakthrough experience that's led by them, their own journey through the material. So it does connect to this work that we are doing, like with the Juilliard curriculum. So in all the stuff that we do,
Absolutely.
but that's thinking like an artist, being open to thinking in that flexible thinking.
I promise you, when I designed the question, I did not know. Had a connection back to the curriculum. That's amazing to know.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Most definitely.
Okay. Speaking of Juilliard.
It was not a planned segue, by the way.
We did it.
Right? Speaking of Juilliard, your roles, you're a curriculum specialist. What does that mean on a day-to-day basis?
You got this one.
What does
do
that
I?
mean?
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Our work is not always day-to-day because of the nature of travel.
Okay.
Because of the way that the folks that we deal with all around the world, time shifts and so forth. So it really does depend which hat we're wearing. Whether it is that we are conducting an online PD because Russia I will never go to. And so every piece of work that I do with them has to happen online, and they record lessons and send them back, and then we'll have a Zoom call. So that's one type of relationship that we have. And then there are visits like this where we come and we stand and we're here for several days, and we work with teachers doing professional development. We work with the SLT in terms of how we're going to begin to further implement and design and create curriculum that is specific for your school, for your culture, for each microcosm. And then we have our observations of the teachers where we do very similar work and building curriculum with them and designing curriculum that is really tailored to their strengths as teachers, forcing them and pushing them to the next level in terms of their work, as well as what's necessary for the students.
Right.
Then I'll pass to Brian for two of the other hats that we're currently wearing in this moment of curriculum specialist, if you wouldn't mind.
I mean, so Raphael, you're just describing a lot of the stuff that we do in the school with the teachers. We're supporting the teachers. We're supporting the performing arts program, right? We talked about the growth here of this program.
Yes.
That's, we're supporting all those initiatives. And then behind the scenes, we are part-time specialists. So there is a full-time team in New York who also do this work as well. But the part-timers, we also participate in writing the activities, editing the activities. Right now we're mapping standards on the activities. We have different committees that work with different cultural aspects of the program and inclusive practices related to the program. So there's a lot going on that most people probably don't see. It's way beyond the website.
Yes.
At the end of the day, though, if I had to sum up what is a curriculum specialist, we're all about personal relationships. When we get here, or even online, talking with the teachers, talking with faculty, talking with SLT, talking with you, we make that connection, and then we can have real conversation around growing the work. So I feel like that it's all about, it's the collaboration. And that's, so curriculum specialist sounds like a fancy name, and it is. It is. And when I tell people I'm a Juilliard curriculum specialist, they're like,
What does that mean?
I thought you were a salsa trombone player. I'm like, no. But it is, we do specialize, I guess, in really knowing the Juilliard approach to this curriculum, and and that's not to say that we're always the expert, but we can facilitate the conversation around the work. So, yeah.
And then in terms of our end as well, to add on to that, as Brian is saying, we're not always the expert. We work with an incredible group of part-time specialists and full-time specialists, and we have monthly PD as well, where we get together and hash it out for 3 hours, 8 times a year, and then for 8 hours twice a year, and then an entire week in June. So we're constantly looking at the ways in which we can make ourselves better as individual teachers, how our departments can strengthen, and then how we can, grow the tree, that exists in each one of the communities that we work in. Because each one of those communities demands a different style, has different needs based upon the human beings that are in the building, as well as the countries in which we're working in. Because we are literally, as you are, worldwide, and what works here doesn't work in Switzerland, and what works in Switzerland doesn't work in China, and what works in China is not going to work in Compton, right? So we have to be existentially flexible.
Right. SAT word. It's like you're reading from my page here. I was going to ask you about that. Traveling all over the world. And our community has different demands, different preferences, different things that we like versus other places that you mentioned. How do you masterfully weave through that to say, you know what, in our Khor, this is how we're going to do it here. In China, we're going to do it here. In this region of America, we're going to do it here. How do you weave through that and work with the people there to give them what they need and what they want to thrive? How does that work?
What do you think, B?
Very deep question.
Well, there isn't one way.
Okay.
Right? There is not. I mean, there's no formula for it.
Okay.
But I do think it's, just I think we're lucky. I feel uniquely positioned as an artist coming into this work, living in New York City, because I play Brazilian music with Brazilians. I play, Balkan music with Balkan musicians. I play Mexican music with Mexican musicians. I play with such a range and connect in that, so that world perspective. But, there's, there are differences. It's not to say there are not, there are differences in China and differences here, and that some of that is cultural, some of that is just the time period, right? Where I'm from a certain generation, the kids are from a different generation, the teachers are from a different generation. So there's many levels and layers. And I don't know if it was before we'd done some work around that in our training around just generational differences and how we're talking to older teachers, younger teachers, and teachers at midpoint in their career, teachers that are like beginning in their career, teachers that are like, veterans, like, don't tell me what to do. I've done. I know how to teach. Like, leave me alone. So it's not just about cultural. It's also just each school community has its own culture. So we're going to Compass tomorrow, and I know there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences because there's different leadership. So it goes beyond just China versus Middle East or Brazil. But that's also to say there's also cultural things that are important. I just like being open to it and learning about it. I don't expect to know everything. I'll just say one quick thing.
Oh, please.
I was working in China for the first time last year, and I thought, oh my word, these students are so chatty. They won't stop talking. And I realized about halfway through, no, they were actually translating for each other what was happening.
Wow.
And once I kind of started to realize that, I realized they were on task. I just changed the tempo a little bit of my facility, the activity.
Yes.
And it was okay. But it didn't occur to me that might be the case. Because here today, I was working with a class, they're very quiet. They were very quiet kids. And so that's another, okay, now how are we going to do with this? There's always and I enjoy solving those problems or those thinking about how we get through that issue, so I don't know. Yeah.
Well done.
To put it in some real terms.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I love being an actor is I consider myself, a cultural anthropologist. I want to understand why people behave the way that they do. I want to understand the influences that lead them to make these decisions. And in working backwards, sort out how I can help facilitate larger conversations and open learning to people, right? So sometimes that spiral goes this way and sometimes the spiral goes the other way. And so our job is to figure out when we come into these microcosms, which way it's spinning and how we can center ourselves in that, center the students in that, center the administration in that, and move forward. And so it is, as Brian is saying, it's always a different process, which is the beauty and the challenge of the work.
Yes. I think with the arts, we talk about things that sometimes in this world that divides us. But when you talk about music, when you talk about movies and acting, those are the things that people can bond on.
Yeah.
I remember coming to this country and people find out that, oh, you're American. One guy from Nepal, he said, I learned English from American movies. And he said he studied it while he was here working, and he would just look at the subtitles of movies, and he would actually know even some colloquialisms, idioms.
Yes.
And I'm like, how did you learn that without like a tutor? He's like, I love American movies. I love it. And so we think about like the culture exporting around the world. But it does bring people together.
It does.
Like sports does, and music and movies. So it's also something that people can also, say, hey, look, I love jazz. Oh, you love Boney James? Oh, I do too. And it's like, okay, cool. And that doesn't matter where we are in the world. So that's pretty amazing as well. That's some incredible work you guys do with kind of weaving through, I come to this place, this is what it's going to be. And then in real time, looking at the kids and saying, okay, what do I need to do to get the best out of them? Looking at the staff and saying, what do I need to do to get the best out of them? So that's amazing.
And, we know this is, as teachers, as educators, every educator knows this. The class that you just had, you can do the same lesson with the next class, and it's going to be totally different because the culture in that classroom is very they're not quiet, they're
very
chatty.
Different than 8Ds, different than 4A.
I mean, so this is what we do now, as teachers know this as well. So we try to kind of emulate that as well. Like when I got interrupted yesterday during the lesson, or the lesson got cut. This is real life, That's what happens. We're in a school community, like you said. There's noise outside. That's where we are. That's where we're living. So that's what's okay.
I never heard a quiet school do anything of note.
No,
I've never heard of that before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of your time here, right? It's only 2 days, and you're going down to our sister school, Compass, for how many days? 4?
Was supposed to be 4.
Yeah. It shifted. There's some shifts that happened. So we'll have 3.
Yeah. Okay. That's still good. Still good amount of time. I wanted to know something, because when you're coming to the Middle East, a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't do music in the Middle East. Oh, you can't dance in the Middle East. Or you can't do this. Obviously, the Middle East is not just Qatar, so not sure how many times you've been in different countries in the GCC or the Middle East. But what can you say about the students and learning performing arts in the Middle East? Is it something the students are like, yes, I want to do? Or what is your response? Is it the opposite of that? Because I always think it's a little bit in between, but I don't see it as a flat out rejection. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Our experience, I think the experience that I'm having here, I'll speak for myself, is that as with many things, I'll say, access acceptance and permission often allows people to have exploration, and through exploration, folks can make a decision whether it's something that they are interested in or not interested in. And I feel that the more within this community people have been exposed to arts, the more people I see coming and making the decision to openly take part, to willingly take part once they understand that it is okay, and that there are elements of it that are very important, whether they choose to be an actor or a dancer or a singer or not, that what we're here to expose them to is not for them to come to Juilliard per se, but just for them to have another way of thinking about how they learn.
Right.
And how it is that at some point they're going to have to stand up in front of people and make a presentation, or sit in front of the camera and have a conversation with their friends, right? Or what it is, or how it is that they will be able to present themselves for a job interview. That all of these skills that we're teaching them are soft skills. How you think outside of the box, how you play a note that may not be a part of the scale, right? What are the things that you can do to expand your ability as a learner, as a human, that will allow you to be open to whatever may come next, right? That is not scripted. And so I think I feel a huge shift here as well as at Compass.
I appreciate that answer. I really do. I really gravitate to what you said there. So Brian, you have to one up him now.
Oh, well.
no pressure.
I think about it. So one of my first times, I'd been to the Middle East a couple times, and then I added Kuwait. So I've worked in Kuwait as well, and there is some minor differences between what's allowed and what's not allowed, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And it seems like all of it is a gray area in some respect, and some of it is just out of respect for the, like we have to respect the culture that we're in.
Yes.
And so being mindful of that and being aware and saying that is, I think, that's healthy. An experience that I had at a school in a classroom where we were singing Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters is because it's a classic blues from the Delta blues era. So we were looking at Thelonious Monk, and because that's in the curriculum, Thelonious Monk. But this Muddy Waters piece is in there to help us really identify the feeling and the sound of American blues. Right. And these young girls in the class were singing along and singing Muddy Waters loudly and proud and enjoying themselves and having a great time.
Yes.
And on the side, one girl turned to me, and I was watching the class, and she said, I'm not really allowed to sing this. And I'm not really supposed to be singing. And I was like, well, is it okay that you're singing here? She's like, yeah, this is fine. I'm in my class. I can sing because I'm learning. Yeah. And I said, so you wouldn't be able to do this at home? She's like, no. And I said, well, are you enjoying it? Oh, I really like this. But she there wasn't like any tension around the fact that she wasn't going to do it at home. And I said, well, you're sounding great here in the class. We're having a good time here. And that's where I felt like that was a special moment for me, because I was like, there was so much joy coming from her to be able to do this, but also joy and acceptance of her culture and from her, what's acceptable in other spheres, right? So I sort of started to think about it like more. It's not just one thing, right? It's like you can have places and areas where you can try things new, try out new ideas and try things, and then other places where you're going to stay within the tradition and within the culture of where you are. So and some people might be more open to that and less open to that, but I think it's getting that broader experience. I think the students are coming to this school to have more of those experiences. So So yeah, I say like let's open that up
Yes.
and whether they take it home or not, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think
But I will say that those conversations are happening in homes now more than they were 5 years ago. Where people have said, I think I'd like to do this, and so folks are having these real conversations with their parents about understanding, how, is there a way for me to be able to do this? Will you be okay with me doing this? Can we find a way to make that happen in a way where you feel comfortable? And that's, whatever decision is made is the decision that's made. But the fact that we're having conversations like this, I think is what is important.
Yes.
Because there are other ways where if you want to be an artist and your family is uncomfortable with you singing, perhaps you're a sound engineer and maybe they're okay with that because you're an engineer. Or perhaps you're a designer.
Yes.
Or perhaps you build sets and it's architecture. Where can you find your way into this huge world of performance, of art, where it's okay.
Yes.
And as we told the kids, as we were talking with them earlier, in no matter what field the performing arts is a huge field. They're so diverse. But no matter which area you go into, you need to know a lot about all aspects of that. So if you like sound engineering, you still need to know about how to make music and how to put music together. So if you're only working just with Ableton and Beats, that's cool. But you should also understand how rhythm works and how, how drumming works.
Yes.
So, it's not just one or the other. And the people that are the best at that understand that, that there's,
and know music theory as well, because that's, which then is connected to mathematics. And then we can start having the conversations about the ways in which all of these curriculums actually align with one another, feed one another, connected to STEM.
The music of this culture, the Arabic music is so rich in itself, and and so there's a lot that learning about Muddy Waters can influence understanding of your own music as well. So I don't think it's just, I've tried to learn Arabic music at different points, and it's overwhelming what to learn in it, because it's so different than what our Western ears have been trained to learn. But I would actually say that studying jazz and blues, which is my background, actually gives me a window into Arabic music in a different perspective that's very unique. Because I can hear that the improvisatory elements, the aspects of what's special about it. So I don't know. It's like learning other things helps you learn the thing to go deeper into that. So there's a lot.
There are a lot of connections, absolutely. And thinking about the importance of poetry within the Arabic culture, thinking about it, it's not just about the importance of understanding language and understanding rhythm and understanding storytelling, which are all connected directly to drama curriculum, but then the emotional connection to history and philosophy, it's all wrapped up in the drama curriculum as well. How do we interpret the words? Why were these masters writing? Why were these philosophers thinking? What was happening? What is Jami wrestling with? What are the Sufi poets wrestling with that lead them to write this story, right? And then how do we express that now with the knowledge that we have in what is modern and what is historical? Leads to beautiful storytelling.
Yes.
So I think there are lots of connections for us to make and to understand and to explore.
And I guess some of the hallmarks of a good question is how long open-ended the answers are. So I think I did a good job asking that question, right?
Absolutely.
Now, it's wonderful answers. What I was going to say is, just in this community, I'm amazed. I've been here for 9 months, and I'm amazed at just some of the students who I did not think even cared about performing arts. And I see them on stage. I'm like, she's on stage? He's on stage? What are they doing up there? But they love it.
Yeah.
And then the parents, who you would think may not want them to be on stage or performing, they're in the crowd,
Yeah.
clapping, happy for their kids. Because I think they see the other benefits that performing arts
Yes.
give children.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give my own segue. What are the main benefits of students in performing arts programs? What will they learn?
I'll say one word: joy.
Yeah. I gotta,
Drop the mic.
yeah, just that's it.
Drop
What he said, what he said, what he said. Just understanding, like, you know, like, you can't learn anything without joy. I mean, joy, if you are not having, there has to be some joy within what you're doing to learn the most. And so if we know that performing arts brings that joy, I mean, if you think about a day of school without it, you know, if you think about that, it doesn't, not that it can't be joyful in math. I mean, that's
Right.
joyful too, but we know that that environment, a joyful environment, supports learning at its highest level. So there isn't really a better answer than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so.
I guess I woke up just in time.
And you said
Community would be the
Yes,
second
Oh,
term,
absolutely.
I
Well
would
done.
say. Yeah.
Well
that's
done.
another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That is enough. We just talked about the universal love, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
That's the world community.
Yes.
Everybody bonds behind food and music and culture.
Yeah.
You can learn culture through music.
Oh,
You
yes.
can learn culture through this. So
Yes, absolutely.
both your answers are drop the mic.
Under
Okay.
the belt.
You're just so far away.
I'm just far away.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. And then I would say I find joy in math when I'm counting my money. That's what I joy. That's the joy.
What he said.
That's right. We all dropping a mic, you
Yes.
know. We only have about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but 5 or 10 minutes. I want to ask this question as well. Think about the future. How much is technology impacting performing arts? Negatively or positively?
Oh boy.
I'm going to give my same answer that I can keep giving.
See, I don't know it.
It's always been affecting it.
Yeah.
Since right, like,
Okay.
there's never been a period in time where technology has not affected let's just say performing arts,
Yeah.
right? From the minute they could write it down, right? All the great composers, Haydn, Beethoven, that's believe me, if they had GarageBand, that would be on GarageBand, right?
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
there's always been, and that's technology, right? The fact that they could write this music out and we still can play it. That's a time period. We don't have a recording of what it sounded like in 1801 or I'm saying wrong dates.
Yeah.
Like, scratch that.
He's not a historian.
I'm not a historian. Whatever the time period, you know, when Vivaldi was writing his music, right?
Yes.
So, but we have this technology. We've been able to keep it, and every step of the way through recorded media, through digital, through now AI, like, you're never going to stop it. You can't. It's the train technology will always push forward, and the performing arts will always be right there. Like, it's never gonna. I mean, like, musicians in the. When the record player came out, musicians in the 20s were like, we're done. I guess we all lost our jobs overnight.
Really?
Yeah. And like I talked to musicians. I remember way back in the day when I was first in New York in the 90s, and I was playing in like the Four Tops and like some older, some bands like that. And I'd be with these older musicians, and they would say, man, when the Beatles came out, we thought that was it. No more jazz. Like, jazz was over. I'm like, jazz, that did not happen, you know? Like, so every time something new comes, like the performing arts is right there. There, I feel like
We drive AI. We drive
that
technology.
Yeah.
Right? There was no cell phone until Star Trek, right?
Oh, yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty. Right?
Yeah.
Some writer, some actor, somebody came up with this concept of speaking to this thing, and then we got the cell phone. So yes, I agree 100%
Yeah.
with what Brian is saying. Will we be replaced? No.
No, I don't think
Because at the core of what we're talking about, which is the beauty of our work, is coming back to joy, coming back to community, coming back to keywords in our philosophy, which is personal connection.
Yes.
And how we connect with one another and how we are able to empathize with one another is vital to our survival as human beings.
Absolutely.
Since before we understood
Yeah.
what we now call language is, right? So
the access that, I think about, me as a young musician, I had my dad's record collection, and we started to buy CDs in the early 90s.
Yes.
And, so that was like, but that opened up a whole world, right? I all of a sudden had like access to more stuff than I could listen to. My dad's generation didn't have that, and so like that pushed me to explore music that my dad never had explored, right?
Yep.
He explored a lot. So there's like the technology really, and it pushes
It
us
helps.
to do more.
Brian and I were at dinner last night, and oh my, do you hear that? Took out my cell phone, hit.
Shazam, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want
Yeah.
that record. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yes.
is it a challenge? Most definitely. Is it going to cause issues? Most definitely. Will we overcome those? Most definitely.
I mean, I think Miles Davis, one of my, he's a good example of an artist that just continually transformed himself. And if you want to, you don't have to do this. You don't have to transform. You can stay one direction, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But if you want to be at the front, you're going to have to transform. You're going to have to come up with something like. You're going to have to keep thinking ahead and 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 you look at like Miles for example, his career. I mean, it started in jazz and it ended in like playing
point.
Madonna.
That's a good
So
point.
like or Michael Jackson songs. So like
Right.
he wanted to be Sly and the Family Stone. Like he
What-
transformed
yeah.
himself all through history, and if he had kept doing it, it would have changed again. So
Yes.
there are artists there that have shown us these ways.
There are painters who have done this.
Yeah.
Right. There are actors who
Playwrights.
continue to do that. There are playwrights who continue to do that.
Yeah.
And ways in which we find to collaborate with one another where we are changing the art forms.
Yes.
Right. So art forms that didn't exist before become something new and informed because this writer decides that they're going to take this form of music and couple it with this type of storytelling and add some digital on the wall, and suddenly we have a new play.
Little alchemy.
Right.
Yeah.
No one's ever done that before,
Right.
right? These three things that happen, and so
Yeah.
we'll always find a way to reinvent
Yeah.
and keep.
I mean, people
creating.
still play chess,
Oh yeah, I love it.
and like that's an old game.
Yes.
And yet people still find new ways to beat each other and make mistakes, and so like if you think there's and it's not a performing art, but like there's always innovation happening, and so
The way some of these
can
chess
embrace
players
it.
play
I
in
know.
Washington Park.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's art form right there.
Right.
Like 5 of them. One,
5 seconds. 5
Yeah.
seconds. 5 seconds.
I'm like, how do they do that?
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hustled you. They
Yes.
hustled you.
Yeah.
2 questions. One's going to be the last one of this interview format, and I have one random one to get to know your opinion on something very quick. Last question here. If a student is on the fence about jumping in to performing arts and say, I want to do this for life or for purpose, What would you say to, in terms of advice for that person, him or her, what would you say for them to do to jump in?
Jump.
Yeah.
Just jump.
Well, yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I answer this question a lot because at home I work. In addition to Juilliard, I also work at a conservatory, the Brooklyn Conservatory.
Nice.
And I deal with a lot of parents, and this question comes up all the time, and it's coming up in my life. If you have that feeling, do it now, because that's how you will know where you want to go. I have friends that did full music degrees. Some most talented musicians I know are now doctors, lawyers.
Wow.
My friend is a surgeon, but he's an awesome jazz saxophone player. He never went to class, but he was the best player in school, and now he's a surgeon. Right. So there is he had to go on that journey, and so I think like you said, jump, because there's I'll say you only get to do it as a young person. It's just easier to do as a young person. You have more flexible time with less responsibility. What you did was that's a rarer thing for people in our profession, and it shows how passionate you are beyond, like how much you needed to do that. So like sometimes I think for myself, I'm like, I could have at least tried something, but I'm like, well, this is it. This is what I'm doing.
Straightforward.
Yeah. But I do think, like, as a young person, if you're thinking about that, go for it. I mean, my wife went that route and got into music school and realized, no, this is not what I want to do. And that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Right? That's important.
You do need to check that.
And that was what her journey was. So it's fine. It's good. It's good to know these things, because it's not for everybody. I think we know that. Most common question I get is, is this your profession? Yes, this is what I do.
Not like a side gig, or
it's not a side gig. This is what we do. So it's a hard thing, but I don't know if you want to add on.
No, I don't. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Jump.
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 Yeah.
If you feel that, then the worst feeling that I think I've seen people who've had their regret, who say, I wonder what would have happened if I had, or I should have, or now it's too late. And then that, I think, can lead to, some internal unhappiness, some sense of unrest, and a sense of a lack of possible fulfillment. And yeah.
I mean, I still regret not taking my basketball scholarship. I'm paying loans for school.
Hello, right?
I should have took my behind. It's basketball in college.
Exactly.
I was a nerd. I was just thinking about, I can't play basketball and go to school at the same time.
Yes.
But people do it all the time.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely.
The pain of regret is still
Absolutely,
here.
Yeah.
Great. I have one question for you to end the show. One question. Jazz. My favorite modern jazz artist is Robert Glasper. I believe he's amazing. If I ever go back to the States, I'm going to watch a Robert Glasper show.
Yes.
Who is your favorite artist of all time?
Oh my gosh. Well, I can answer that for you, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you have to go first. Yeah.
Oh no, I was going to, of all time. That's complicated.
Of all time.
Of all time. See, I thought I knew who yours was.
This was not on my script, so they don't know. I was going to ask this question. They don't know.
August Wilson.
August Wilson. Wow. I did not think you were going to say that. That's deep.
August Wilson.
That's deep. Do some research on August Wilson. That's deep. Wow. Why? For people who don't know.
August didn't have a formal education. He had a desire to write and to tell stories.
Yeah.
He sat in a classroom and he told his teacher that he wanted to be a doctor And the teacher said to him, have a more realistic expectation. And so he left school because someone said to him what they said to him. Yeah. And he spent the rest of his time in the library, reading everything that he could get his hands on. And then when he ran out of what he wanted to teach himself in the library, he went to the barber shop and he started listening to the stories being told by the elders. And he started writing stories and he started finding voices. And then he decided to write what has become known as the Pittsburgh Cycle, which is 10 stories about the African-American experience between 1900 and 2000, one story for each decade. And inside of those stories, we have music, we have life, we have the challenges, the triumphs, I'll say the tribulations of Black America, a piece of history that is a textbook on history unto itself, that tells stories that are not being told anywhere else, including the best historical textbooks, in my opinion, that are inclusive of history of the Americas.
Yes.
And put those stories on stage and employed beautiful people from throughout the diaspora and brought folks to the theater who didn't necessarily look like the people, the Black, brown people of all hues that were on the stage, and made them recognize. And so for me, August was the man.
I like that. Don't hear people go back that far, but I'm glad you did, because you educated people out there now about how deep that answer was. I agree with you on that one as well.
Do I have to answer this question?
If you're friends with them, don't. If you're not friends with them, then it's all fair and game.
Yeah.
So who would be your favorite artist of all time and why?
You know,
such a hard question.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, my love and my passion is improvisation and jazz. Jazz was my first. That's what when I heard that music, that's what sunk my teeth. So I have listened to so much jazz and such a variety of jazz. Jazz is like, you can't put it into one thing. You said Robert Glasper. Yes. He's an amalgamation and a combo of his own nature of and like so many different things. It's you can't so it's hard to say who's your favorite. Yes, but I can say that there are some every jazz musician that I've become obsessed with in different periods of my time have. Again, I'm giving my same answer. It's a lot of little things, a lot of little favorite artists. At the center, though, of all of those people, right? Duke Ellington. I'm just going to say Duke Ellington, right? Because Duke Ellington, and I've just finished the Charlie Parker biography, which you got to read. Yes, that's the Crouch. If you haven't read the Charlie Parker Stanley Crouch autobiography, it's excellent. But Duke Ellington was my dad's muse, and what we grew up with a picture of Harry Carney in the house. You know, their Barry sax player because that's my dad's.
I like your dad.
Barry sax. But you know, and the more I learn about Duke, and I've done a lot of reading, and I've if you looked at my record collection, I probably have more of that than anything else. It wasn't the first thing I heard, though, but it's centered in the middle of so many things. He was so important in so many ways, and I'm learning. The more I'm learning about him as a person, how others saw him too, is fascinating to me. And my dad actually got his degree. handed to him by Duke Ellington. Like, so there's a special connection I feel. And Duke's music is like complicated, and it spans decades of all these different, and for me, it's the center. Yeah. And I think about everything from Stevie Wonder to all the way to Joni Mitchell and Mingus and all the people. I mean, see, I start naming the names. You're like, well, that's my favorite. Because Mingus was my favorite. I mean, when I was 12, it was Miles. When I was 13, it was Mingus. When I was 14, it was Dexter Gordon. So Dexter Gordon. Wow. I'm just like, it goes in spurts. But Duke Ellington is at the center of a lot of those things, and was such an influence. On the world of jazz that I am attracted to, about see, I'm sitting up now, I'm excited. Personal expression and personal sound, and that was what Duke's ensemble defined in such a, I mean, it's a perfect, I don't know, there's so much to say about it. I can't say enough about it.
Because he would hear you and write for you, which is what August Wilson did as well. He would hear you and he'd write your story, or he'd experience you as an actor and write for you, which is the same thing that Duke did. And so absolutely, it allows everybody's personal canon and experience and personal connection to the work to spread. So now I'm playing the way Duke wrote for me, and you're playing the way Duke wrote for you, and then those people go off. And
it's almost impossible to play a Duke Ellington transcription, because you can only do a somewhat mediocre imitation of the sounds of those players. So if you have to play Duke Ellington, you have to play, that trombone player has to play like Juan Teasel, and that saxophone player has to play like Johnny Hodges, but there's no way they can do that because those were special to that sound, right? So, and he, I think he just influenced such a wide range of artists, from, you said Quincy Jones earlier. I mean, we're talking like, and he's at the center and the core of a lot of that, I think, to me. And the way other musicians, the way Charlie Parker and these guys talk about Duke Ellington, the way Duke Ellington spoke, and the way he was. I mean, he was a
very good speaker,
and they all looked up to him in this way. The way he dressed, the way, and Duke's a complicated figure too. I mean,
it's some stuff in there.
It's complex, but
some things in there.
But at the same time, he there's a center there that I think there's an orbit that surrounds him. And I do feel that that's a special thing for me. So that's the only answer I could maybe give. Is like Duke Ellington.
And I can see that and respect.
I loved your reaction though when I said the word Duke Ellington. Of course. That means a lot to me.
Because to me, he personified history through music. I thought about the Renaissance of Black Americans and what we were all trying to aspire to. There was a time, and I talked to my mom about this a lot. My mom was born in the 50s, my dad was born in the 50s, and we talked about how people dressed. No matter how much money you had, you dressed to the nines.
That's right.
Well,
you're in the Great Migration. You wore your best clothes. And so to me, he's history through music to me. And I don't know any other way to explain it. And that's why I think he's so special out of everyone else. So when you said that, I'm a history major. I went to school for history. I perked up. For sure, I perked up. You saw August Wilson. We don't all go back and talk about the elders. We don't. We all talked about 19. I talked about Robert Glasper, right? He's contemporary. He's modern. He's right now. But how far do we go back? Because those are the people who didn't get paid as much, but they paved that ground for you. They
So you might have noticed that the video cut off, right?
Experiencing operational difficulties.
And listen, you should have seen what Brian did. I don't even have words for it. As soon as we said Duke Ellington, lucky the camera cut off. He jumped on the couch and started proclaiming his love for Duke Ellington, Dexter Gordon, Charlie Mingus, everybody.
Stevie Wonder.
Yes. Oh, man. How we get Stevie? How can we forget Stevie? So you missed it. Shame on you, right? But the camera didn't capture it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it was a wonderful, wonderful episode. Really appreciate you all coming.
Thank you.
I could have had this conversation for 2 more hours. We will have a conversation,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure, outside of this as well. And as I was saying before, if I told Raphael who my favorite actor was, we would have had another 20-minute conversation. Denzel Washington. Thank you very much, everyone.
Same drama school.
Right? Same drama school. I told you, right? I didn't even know that. Same drama school. That's interesting. We gotta go. Ma salama. That's what we say in the Middle East. It was a fun time. Thanks for coming along.
Peace. That's what we say in New York.
Peace. Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming by.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Well,